still morning time to say very good morning again. Good. So basically, I'm going to be this time only moderating. I'm not going to be really talking much. So I would like to give it a quick start by welcoming the distinguished panelists to this panel discussion, starting with Dr. Sherif Hashem, the advisor to the Minister of Communication in Egypt, Ms. Yurie, the head of JP CERT and the chairman of the Asia Pacific CERT. I would like also to invite Dr. Ezedin. He is the director of the National Information Security Agency in Libya. I would like also to call Obisso, the cybersecurity coordinator of the ITU, and then our two distinguished colleagues and friends from the GCC, Hamid Sadiq Al-Hashmi, the manager of Q-CERT, and Mr. Ahmed Al-Ketbi, the representative of aeCERT. Please. Good. So basically, in this panel discussion, we're going to have a mixture of briefs and our presentations to be given by the panelists. We'll probably have only one quick presentations and a few briefs from some of the panelists, and I'll be directing some question. I really would like you to save me most of the work, so you direct the question instead of me. Otherwise, for those who's going to trouble me to make the question, I need to look into how I do revenge later on. So let's just start by requesting Dr. Sherif to give his remarks, please.
Okay, sure. Thank you very much. It's a real pleasure being here. I'd like to start off by thanking really the organizers and the host country. It's a real pleasure to be here in Oman among colleagues discussing such a very interesting and timely topic. I'd like to share with you some of the views based on the Egyptian experience and our interaction with colleagues across the Arab world and internationally across the group. Basically, cybersecurity threats are not new to our region. I remember, and they emerge in different ways and forms. I remember a few years ago during the the qualifying matches for the World Cup, Football Cup, between Egypt and Algeria, we had a lot of really interesting incidents happening as part of the off-field activities between Egyptian hackers and Algerian hackers. That was in November 2009, resulting in defacement of tens of government sites in both countries. I remember one of my colleagues from the Egyptian CERT came to me saying, well, our hackers said that we can retaliate and we can attack more and we can bring down more Algerian sites. I was extremely surprised and astonished, and I said, of course not. Algeria is a friendly country, and hacktivism shouldn't cross borders, in my view, as a government official, to go to bringing down and defacing governmental sites. That brought a real figure, and in the earlier session, we were discussing about the cyber threats, about what we know and about what we don't know. What we know about malware, we know about vulnerabilities of software, but we don't actually know where the vulnerabilities are. Otherwise, our job would be a lot easier. We know about some of the activities, some of the threats, but we don't know all of them. We don't know about who's going to attack and when. And sometimes it is not as obvious as it looks. We have seen in our region, especially in 2012, a surge in attacks. We have seen Aramco's case in Saudi Arabia. We have seen the case of beer gas in Qatar, and we have a colleague from the Qatar CERT. And we have seen incidents in Egypt, in Libya, in Lebanon, and other countries. And I remember Anonymous, when they attacked in 2011, December of 2011, Egypt, because of demonstrations in the streets were reflected in the denial of service attacks on our Ministry of Interior website. The challenge is not they're attacking an infrastructure for the government or the Ministry of Interior. This was supplied by private sector players. It brought down a part of the network in downtown Cairo, affecting everybody, including demonstrators themselves. And that happened for several hours. So now an attack based on hacktivism by a group like Anonymous can severely affect country. Fortunately for us, it lasted for a few hours and no major damage occurred. But the recurrence of such incidents is increasing at an alarming rate, and we need to be ready for this new cyber Cold War. I am privileged of being part of the UN group of government experts. a group of 15 experts working with the UN, drafting a report to be submitted to the General Assembly, hopefully this summer. However, it is quite challenging. I'm among the minority part of the GGE, the 15 members. I'm among maybe 5 technical experts. The others are diplomats and people with different backgrounds. Bringing up issues that are very sensitive at the diplomatic level, translating them into something meaningful to the general public, at the same time motivating these issues based on technical merits. I don't want to sound too complex when I talk about this, but really the discussions are very complex and the debate is very real. In the earlier session, there was a discussion about a cyber convention or some treaty and agreement. I hope to see this at the global level. However, I think this is far-fetched. I have to be open about this in cyberspace. Having said that, what are we doing about it? As technical people, we need to find mechanisms to go about this in absence of a general global cybersecurity convention.
To be honest, maybe to interrupt on that, Dr. Sherif, and I think having Dr. Sherif to be the advisor of the ministers, he asked a question where I'm going to later on put back the question to him. He asking, what do we do? So being somebody on that higher level, very close to the Minister of Communication, advising him on cybersecurity, and since one of the viewpoints of this panel discussion is to discuss cybersecurity strategies, I'm going to go back to you later on, Dr. Sherif, to understand what are the Egyptian strategy and what is it that you've been advising the minister with to address this.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sherif. I'll just hand it over now to Dr. Ezedin before we go to the presentation. Probably a quick remark if you want to just mention a few things on how is Libya. I know that you have going through a very critical situation for the time being, but I have seen that you are also very eager. You've been pushing hard to basically initiate cybersecurity, and you have already established the National Agency for Information Security. So probably a 2 minutes brief on what is Libya is doing and what is the plan for the coming future.
Thank you very much. I would like to thank the organizers, and I would like to thank Oman CERT for hosting us. It's the first time I attend such an event, and it seems to be a very nice one, and hope to continue participating in such. For Libya, as you know, we are just coming out of a revolution. We're still in a post-revolution situation, but the cybersecurity is a very critical and very important issue to us, and we are serious about it. We are committed, and we are here to introduce ourselves to the Arab colleagues, and we tell them that we are here to stay, and we hope that we can participate and add some value to securing the region and the country. We also would like to learn from the past experiences that our colleagues and our friends and our brothers in the countries adjacent to us, what they have done. What we have done recently is we established the National Security Agency, which is going to be taking care of all cybersecurity issues, from regulations to CERT, which is going to be the cornerstone of this, and also some encryption, PKI, root certificates, and also certification and accreditation for the whole systems in the Libyan agencies in particular. So with that being said, I'm here just to introduce ourselves and to say that we're here trying to learn and try to catch up with what everybody has done.
Thank you very much. I think it is worth mentioning and sharing with you that Dr. Ezedin used to be also the Deputy Minister for Communication. So I'm very glad that we have two distinguished guests that were very close to the decision makers, and it ended up they are supervising the implementation of national security. Now, I'm not really sure if it works the other way around. Those who managing CERTs could become deputy ministers and advisor to the ministers. This is probably a question that we would like to kind of see how it works later on. Let me again call Yurie, please, to give your brief presentation on the JB CERT experience and the Asia Pacific. Yurie has been very active not only in Japan and the AP CERT. She used to be also a steering committee member in the Forum of Security and Incident Response Team, the first, where we are proudly a member of it, as well as our colleagues here from Qatar and UAE. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you very much. think I can say good afternoon. My name is Yurie. I'm from Japan, Japanese National Point of Contact CERT. I'm also chairing the Asia Pacific Security Operations Framework called aeCERT. So I have 2 points to raise in my presentation, and because this is the panel on the CERT roles in international collaboration, I would like to raise my view of 2 important roles for CERT in international collaboration. One is CERT role to cleaning, improving the cyberspace together, and that's cleanup. That's one thing. I'm going to explain a little bit more in my presentation. And the second thing is CERT providing hotline point of contact for technical operation as a part of the confidence building measures. So that's the second role that I believe this is very important for CERT. So with that, that 2 points, I would like to go really super quick, so some introduction and backgrounds, why we believe that this is the vision of the CERT collaboration internationally. So JP-CERT is the operational point of contact CERT. And then this slide is a little bit busy slide, but the only one point that I would like to raise here is we work with private sector and public sector both very closely. Most of the infrastructure are operated by private sector in Japan, so it's very important for us to work with them closely. And then also we're providing a lot of services to government agencies, critical infrastructures, but here the most important point I would like to raise here is international security operations and CERT community are very important partners for us. So we believe international collaboration as a CERT is a critical, very, very important part. So now, with that, a quick introduction about ourselves. Please take a look at this global map. This is a quick view of international and regional cybersecurity frameworks. And please take a look and see if your national CERTs and or cybersecurity authorities are part of one of those frameworks. Also, please let me know if you know any other groups actively operating in the community. We need, as a part of a member of the CERT community, we need to better leverage the ad hoc, informal efforts as well. And we'd like to engage more firmly with this MENA community. So, with that, so I included the GCC, OIC CERT, and also I heard there's a new response center just launched. So I'm going to have to add one more. Now, I would like to talk a little bit about aeCERT. I am chairing this security operations framework in Asia Pacific called aeCERT. And we started 2003, so it's been 10 years of operation. And this is a coalition of the Forum of CERT in Asia Pacific. And most of our activities are mail-based information sharing, instant response assistance, but we also conduct annual general meeting and also cybersecurity exercise, and which we have extended the collaboration with OIC CERT for the last 2 years. And we have Egypt CERT and Oman CERT all participating the aeCERT exercise. So it's not only Asia Pacific. We think it's very important to bridge to the other region and make sure we conduct the gap analysis and we make sure we have a connection to there. Now, from here, I would like to share a little bit of our vision of the international collaboration. And here is what the very first keynote sort of presentation mentioned, a lot of problems. We see the same thing. The major strategic concern here is past 10 years. Pace of the malware, software, exploit developed clearly outpaced ability to rapidly identify, develop the patches, update AV, provide confidence in the integrity of systems. It's very, very hard. Also, in many places, we have a larger number of the bots host infected by malware. And botnets are getting larger, more numerous, growing faster. And then we have increasing number of the cyber conflicts which utilize these type of botnets to conduct those activities. So as a CERT, we start thinking, look, this pace of these problems, we should not just focusing on responding to the incident, vulnerabilities, and threats in front of us. We should really focusing on improving the cyberspace, cleaning up the cyberspace so that for the malicious actors, make the internet space, cyberspace, difficult place for the malicious actors to conduct the bad things. So we, aeCERT, started to have a new vision. We realized that we need a new mindset, which is treating the internet and its health as a connected, common, shared infrastructure. And we plan to contribute to making the internet ecosystem cleaner, which is really a bot or malicious code, disinfection, cleanup, making the internet ecosystem cleaner as a basis for improved cybersecurity in the Asia Pacific. And we believe that this is mutual gain for all in the long term. So that's the cleanup activities. We believe that is very important. Treat the environment, cyberspace, as an environment issue, or maybe like public health issue. So that's one thing. I think that the CERT can collaborate globally. Anybody can participate in this program. So that's one thing. And the second point that I would like to raise is the CERT to provide the emergency point of contact as a part of the confidence building measures. So today's cyberspace, there are significant uncertainties exist in relating to both who is conducting the attacks, as well as surprises relating to the origins of attacks. So improving cyber crisis management must seriously consider the implementation of such collaborative measures, codified agreements, and organizational capacity to reduce uncertainty. So now such collaboration actually exists across the national border today. It largely happens through relatively informal and collaboration between willing coalition of private sector actors. But understanding how to extend this collaboration to foster transparency and conflict risk reduction between states when the risk from cyber crisis and other disruption rises must become a central focus of improving cybersecurity. So with that vision, again, aeCERT, we have 20 economies and 29 teams from 20 economies participating, member of the aeCERT. We have so-called point of contact agreement. So from each economies, we have one emergency point of contact CERT, serving to the aeCERT point of contact arrangement. This arrangement ensures all the point of contact responds with highest priority if being requested. And we also have a sensor network, and that's really raises the quality of it. And this is going to be my last slide. Really, the challenge is CERT to be the trust broker. And we must have an international vision to be the trust broker to work together internationally.
Thank you very much, Yurie. That was an excellent presentation. Again, we would like to hear from the other panelists, their thoughts. I was intentionally planning to direct a number of questions to the three remaining panelists, ITU, Qatar, and UAE. But I thought of let's start an early interaction of this session by probably allowing the audience to say what do they expect from the three panelists to address. If there are questions directed to the three panelists here, I would like to get them first. Okay. You want anybody else? I'm just trying to give someone else an opportunity to ask. But if not, then we go ahead on this table. Maybe a short question, because I really want short briefs before we start allowing room for more questions.
Hi, Assam Hadi Alamin Bahrain. It looks I'm become famous for long questions, right?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
you are always taking the lead with the first question, so I do appreciate you encouraging the others to ask.
Okay. I think I would like to ask this question, which is CERT, if you look at the name, Computer Emergency Response Team, means it's reactive, not proactive. That's one of the major problems in the name itself, because I see it's reactive, not proactive. So I'd like to know what's happening with that area. Second thing is that if I talk about the global itself as what we're talking about, I like to explain more. What we're doing as the Japanese doing here is to clean up. I don't think that's happening at all. So being proactive to solve these issues. And most problem is that I have to remember one thing. Anyone try to do something today is not doing majority are to steal the information. It's durable. The worst thing is to sabotage you. I think that's where the problem, you don't have chance to reply. So if somebody wants to sabotage you, it destroy your business, like what happened to Aramco. 30,000 things went, they were off for 2 weeks. We cannot judge it. So what CERT from this region are doing, especially UAE and Oman, I think, what you're looking at it, because we're too late.
Very clear, very clear. I think let's start with Q-CERT, if you allow me, Marco. Going back to the acronym of CERT. Can take the question is that he is mentioning that computer emergency response teams are more reactive, where basically we do more of a proactive work instead of being reactive. That is your question, yes? First one. First question. Okay.
I would like to add here regarding the CERT concept. As we all know, might be that when it started in 1988, it was due to an incident response and a cyber incident. Q-CERT, when we started in 2005, December 2005, we start with the concept of having a reactive team where provide incident response to the government agencies. However, during the several years come up later, we become more of a cybersecurity division in state of Qatar, provide all level of information security elements, starting from people to process and technology. We try to cover from this reactive part and as well as the proactive part.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Hanum. Any of the...
Yeah,
let's go, Ahmed.
I'd like to add some point here. The aeCERT, United Arab Emirates Computer Emergency Response Team, has about 30 services categorized into 4 main categories. These categories are the research analysis, monitoring and response, education and awareness, and the security quality services. If you see the names, they reflect both. Each category has the reactive and proactive services. For example, the awareness and education, we have lots of campaigns, awareness campaigns in the UAE through the schools, universities, like the government's entities. And for the other services, for example, the research analysis, we have the honeypot and honey farm deployed all over the UAE. That's, we can consider it as a proactive. That's for, I mean, the purpose for that is research, purely research. We have both, actually.
So they're doing both proactive and reactive. I would like also to hear from Marco, his comments on this.
Thank you. Yeah, I wanted to touch base a little bit and following also the presentation for Yurie, because you raised a question in terms of the cyber state is going to be cleaned up, the concept of global CERT. There is no global CERT, as you know, and I think the concept of global CERT is unrealizable. I mean, there is no such a concept that can be implemented. You know, it's difficult to go for a kind of an agreed international norms and principle. So you can imagine how much effort will be, you know, to create an overall infrastructure, I mean, that is covering. But what I think it's important here to also to appreciate is something that has been very, very often forgotten, which is the level of development of the different actors here. And the kind of situation where we are seeing in terms of having a kind of a security gap, where there are countries that have been started this process of equipping themselves with capabilities and capacity in order to address this very growing phenomenon, while there is, I would say, a majority of countries and nations in the world that they are not even know what we are talking about here. And I'm not exaggerating. I give you a few examples which I think all of you know. Okay, aeCERT is a very advanced situation and is a very good best practice. In GCC also, out of 6 countries, 4 have a CERT. We take Africa. We have Tunisia CERT, Egyptian CERT, South Africa is started to develop, and that's all. So we have 52 countries, and we have 3-4 CERTs, okay? South America, it's a little bit better. Some Pacific Islands, they don't have CERT. There is an initiative there. So what I'm trying to say is that the third element that I wanted to add to the 2 elements of Yurie was mentioning is that we need to see the establishment of CERT also as a mechanism to instigate the process within a country to actually establish those policies and strategies that are necessary to start having the ball rolling. Because some countries, I can tell you, I mean, they are at the level of development that is very, very different. And if we don't appreciate this, and if we don't understand the different level of perception that some countries have, and this is something that we are lucky because we are within the UN and we have kind of a global picture of 193 countries. And there is, I can tell you by experience, a very strong disparity in terms of level of development, specifically when we talk about security. So the point here is that, let's say, sometimes we assume, okay, that the knowledge and the understanding in some specific countries or region is kind of the same. So we assume that the threat landscape is kind of uniformly distributed, you know, but it is not like that. So we need really to start creating kind of a foundation that could address those basic needs, even if it's so evident that no one is discussing that, and it's so obvious that, I mean, sometimes we forget that. So we have, you know, we are talking, it was interesting, the presentation of Kevin this morning. It was talking about, you know, advanced persistent threats. It was talking about sophisticated malware. Of course, they are there, and of course, they need to be addressed. But there are countries that actually have, you know, very, very different needs. And if we don't, which are much more basic. And this comes back to what Yurie was saying in terms of cleaning the cyberspace. So basically creating that kind of capabilities at the basic level also in terms of training, and this is linking back to what Kevin was saying in terms of upgrading a human being. We can actually upgrade it. It's through training. It's through building capacity. That is something that, again, we talk about a lot, but the reality is that, you know, there are 100,000 initiatives around the world, but if you see the progress of the growing of knowledge, it's very, very slow. Same thing for the establishment of capabilities.
I think they have addressed it nicely, but also in order to address the acronyms that are used, I mean, even the name has evolved. So CERTs are not anymore an emergency response. They are becoming an emergency readiness team. So CERTs nowadays stand for Computer Emergency Readiness Team or Cyber Emergency Readiness Team. Is Raul in the room? Raul, is he around? No. We used to have an ex-hacker in here named Raul, so I wanted really him to direct a question on how the CERTs could become proactive. But now, since we addressed most of our kind of speakers in terms of question, I would like to go back again on the strategic issues of cybersecurity. Does anyone have a question here on the strategy? Good. Let's pick up a question from the first hand on this table.
Just a simple question.
You are the first hand, so we'll come back.
I can see the CERT is talking about all the government. How about the private sector, the banks? Is there anything happening on the private sector?
Good. So how does the cybersecurity strategy cover the private sector and critical infrastructures? Can we have the second question so we can get them both answered?
My question is, as Yurie mentioned about the aeCERT, that they have an emergency point of contact. How here at the Gulf region level, collaboration can happen so, you know, we can address whatever to the rest of the world? It's a generic question, but...
okay, so you're asking about the collaboration and cooperation within the GCC, and how is this extended to the rest of the world?
Yes,
good.
Thank you.
Dr. Sherif, CNIs, private sectors, and government? How do we come together when we serve them as national CERTs?
Well, in cyber threats affect all sectors, affect the society. And in dealing with them in terms of the strategic level or the operational level, it has to be in partnership with the key players. In our sector, in the ICT sector, the owner of most of the infrastructure are the private sector companies. So here, partnership is key to the success of any strategy for cybersecurity. We have to highlight that when you talk about critical information infrastructure protection, we're talking about more or less between 14 to 16 different sectors. And when you go outside the technology-oriented sectors to the service sectors, transport, water and supplies, healthcare, and others, they see technology as a support activity. And you talk to them about cybersecurity, then sometimes they shift from the state of denial, it will not happen to us, to the state of panic. Let us freeze all ICT projects. Especially, you mentioned banking. I have a colleague from the banking sector in Egypt, and we face the same challenges. You'd like to bring these, threats to the attention of the decision makers so that they have enough resources, human resources, budgets, operational resources, so that you tackle these threats. At the same time, you have a strategy that would really help use ICT and cybersecurity as a tool for development. And that's where we see strategies. When we talked earlier about the convention or the legal framework, regulatory framework, it's very important to get the consensus from different players in all sectors that we need such an agreement at the country level, at the national level, and it has to be done at the high level. And the ITU actually has done some work a few years ago about how governments should go about regulatory agreements and code legal framework for this at the country level. At the international level, we are facing challenges. In Africa, I'm proud to say the African Union with the UN Economic Commission for Africa, they hosted an effort to have an African Convention for cyberspace, which now has been approved by the Minister of ICT and will be hopefully signed by the heads of states this year. It's a beautiful convention. It's a large convention covering many aspects of cyber activities, including cybersecurity. I encourage African countries who are present here to look at it and hopefully join Libya. I don't know if Libya will sign on this, but I hope also for the international community to learn from this process and to work in partnership. And today we heard also from Impact, we have the Interpol, we have many key players who really are international in their nature, and they can help through this partnership, unique partnership, address strategic threats when it comes to cyberspace.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Sherif. And happy that you have basically attached or mentioned regulation part of the strategy. So regulation is definitely important, regulating cybersecurity, making things of a compliance requirement rather than it is an added value. And especially when it comes to the private sector, we all understand the private sector are there to generate revenues. So the balance between spending in information security and cybersecurity and generating more revenue is always a difficult equation. When it comes to the GCC cooperation, let's take it in two parts. First of all, how is the GCC cooperating? Are they focal points to basically ensure this cooperation? Then the second part, how are we doing this cooperation outside the Gulf? Let's start with you, probably Hamid, on the GCC cooperation.
Regarding the GCC cooperation, yes, we do a lot of training under the umbrella of GCC CERT. The first joint presentation we had to the outside world, outside the GCC countries, was in Japan, and in the first, after the first conference, myself and team from aeCERT, we had a presentation there. Apart from that, we did several cyber drills internally within the GCC CERT team, where we have 3 different teams are working together just for get more experience, more response, and enhance the incident response, practices. So yes, there are other things that we have taken in place. Joint trainings. We had several sessions where team from GCC CERT attended the trainings and get benefit from different training programs. And this all comes under the cooperation of the GCC CERT
Thank you, Hamid. Ahmed, aeCERT has been doing great in handling the private sector. Probably you want to address how is it that you are extending your services to the private sector?
Yeah, I'm proud to say that aeCERT has about 100 plus constituents, and like a good number of them are private sector. Now, when we're gonna talk about private sector, there are like two main challenges we are facing. The first one is the objectives. They have their own objectives that are different than the aeCERT, the CERTs in general objectives. And they are more concerned into the securing their customers, and they are more concerned about the privacy of their customers. The second challenge is the first challenge we can solve it by having like the special agreements with them, and that will protect the privacy of the customers of the private sector as well. The second challenge is the trust. Private sector needs to trust the CERT organization so that they can collaborate into sharing the information that will help the CERTs, and it will help themselves as well.
Thank you, Ahmed. Dr. Ezedin, anything on the collaboration?
Yes, I would like to add a few points. I think there are some very good steps that can be followed technically and administratively to ensure that collaboration can really bear fruits, especially here in the GCC. I think establishing a unified collective databases, for example, to do forensic analysis, to do predictive analysis, trend analysis, by collecting some logs against some attacks against some countries, can be shared among the neighboring countries to protect themselves from any future attacks. That's number one. Number two, they can work through some unifying some cybersecurity laws and regulations, because after all, traffic and communication go across boundaries, and if we don't have one standard way of dealing with it, it's very difficult to enforce or maybe bring someone to justice if the law of this country is different than the other. That's another. The third is standardizing the security posture between the countries, the neighboring countries in the Gulf. For example, and the analogy I can say, if there are neighbors, and if your neighbor is not protecting himself, it doesn't matter what you do to yourself, the threat will come to you. So it's got to be some way or mechanism of making sure that all the neighboring countries are at the same level of security. So that's one thing can be done through...
Definitely, very good proposal.
And last but not least is the exchange between the capacity building. I mean, you have to have some trade mission exchanges between the neighboring countries of the capacities of the security people, the security personnel, to bring them up to speed.
Thank you very much. I think we heard the collaboration issue from a regional perspective, the Arab world. We are, to be honest, glad to have Yurie here. When it comes to collaboration and cooperation, she's been in Japan. She is chairing the aeCERT. She's been a committee member in the first. So all of this were efforts of collaboration. Yurie, you want to address this issue? Sure. Go ahead.
Well.
So there are questions about what do we expect from this community, and also the question about how, would it be good to extend the point of contact to the rest of the world from the GCC and this community, MENA and all this community. Yes, of course. So two things I would again raise. For the point of contact, it really reduced the cyber conflict risk when we have a point of contact, when we see something uncertain on the cyber coming from your region. The most dangerous thing is because we do not have a party to talk, misunderstanding, misinterpretation, and all these things raise the incident or conflict, quickly escalating into a crisis, political crisis as well. So it is really helpful to have someone in this region to talk to. So please do extend your trust point of contact to the rest of the world. And we are working really hard with the trusted partners to extend that trust to get the network. So that's one thing. For the cleanup, to improve the cyberspace, this is what we would like to see. I mean, sorry, this is really my personal view, but I would like to see a regional framework is a great place to start to develop the norms, cyber norms. So for example, if you take a look at the environment, global environment approaches, 20 years ago, or 10 years ago even, nobody cares about printing the paper. But when you take a look at the email, and in the end of the email, there's a footer always saying that, please think seriously before printing out this email. That's a norm, it's a mindset. And the regional framework is really important, great place to start that type of norm. Once you have that type of mindset and norms, we need to treat the cyberspace, improve that environment. You have a great leaders like Oman CERT, Egypt CERT, and everybody start doing already those cleanup. There are a lot of best practices, method, there are datas. First to start having that norm is going to be the great start.
Maybe we just moved out of the steering committee, yeah? So they don't have that norm anymore. I think when it comes to global collaboration and cooperation on cybersecurity, ITU is definitely playing an important role there. And here I would like to hand it over to Marco to address this specific issue.
Yeah, so we are contributing and we are trying to facilitate. But again, I come back to the point that I raised before, which in a way has been confirmed. The problem here is that we want to establish point of contact in countries where cybersecurity is not seen as a priority, or in countries where there is no understanding of who should deal with the issue. So when we talk about, for example, again, we assume here US CERT, Q-CERT, Oman CERT, they are CERT with national responsibility. So it means that they are dealing with national critical infrastructure or critical national infrastructure. When we talk about CERT in the private sector, almost all companies, they have their own incident response team. But it doesn't mean that a country is equipped with a CERT. So we need to move in a direction where the CERT is becoming an institution that is really providing this kind of a counterpoint at the level of the nation, at the level of the state, okay? Then you can have CERT, you can have other emanation of other sectorial CERT, or CERT even that are collaborating, but you need to have this kind of a national structure in place. When we talk about global cooperation, of course, ITU is there to help. We are partnering with Impact. Well, Impact, actually, the coalition is now 145 countries, but we have, a beautiful model that has been already developed. Is First is a forum of incident response team, but basically almost all CERT around the world are affiliated with that. There is an affiliation program which is well established. So there are already mechanisms. What is really missing is the basic capability. What is missing is countries that are, starting, equipping themselves with CERT. So we had an experience in Africa. We started with 4 countries. Now we are working with 10 countries, and we have already finalized 4 countries in terms of establishing national CERTs. And they are starting to work at the sub-regional level, and they are starting, for example, also with the help of Oman, to start the process of affiliation to FIRST. And we are really keen to carry on working as an institution, as an intergovernmental organization with FIRST and with the other institutions. So global cooperation can happen if you have capabilities at the national level, and coming back to what Yurie said, which I very, very much agree with, because we are doing that, also instigate the regional cooperation. So it is a kind of a top-down approach, and the bottom-up approach, come together. But you need to develop this kind of a concept where, national capabilities needs to be put in place. Otherwise, there will be no way that a country can come up and it will say, okay, now I received an attack, I know who to contact. Because we can clean up, regional cyberspaces, even if it doesn't really make sense what I'm saying. But if there is a region that is not cleaned up, this, let's say, virus, not in terms of the malware, but this kind of a virus in cyberspace is basically disseminating worldwide. So we come back to the same problem, okay?
Thank you very much, Mark. I think we are left with 10 minutes. So here I would like to get questions, either direct question to the panelists, or what do you really want to see in the remaining 10 minutes? So what do you expect to hear from the panelists? Okay, I've seen a lady over there, if you just allow me. Okay.
Yeah, Badar, just a small suggestion before I ask my question. I think it will enhance the networking opportunities if anybody who asks question introduce where he is from. So I'll start with myself.
I'm glad that a female is suggesting this. So that's mean male had no excuse not to do so. Please go ahead.
I'm Fathi Al-Farsi from Petroleum Development, Oman. My question is, what is the formal role of the CERTs in this regional center that was launched yesterday? And how does it offer a platform or a forum for collaboration between the CERTs? Thank you.
Good. To get you right, Fathia, the question was, what is it that the regional center is giving and how does it promote regional collaboration?
Well, specifically, what are the CERTs, the region CERTs, formal role in the region, in the regional center, if any? And how does the region center offer a platform or a forum for collaboration?
Good, excellent. So this is one question. Let's take a few questions so that we can manage the remaining time. Okay, one quick question, please, here. I would like to get the question in less than 30 seconds so I can give the majority an opportunity to ask.
Hi, again, Assam Hadi, Aluminium Bahrain. My question is very simple. We are at the moment at the mercy of vendors. So the question is now, who will be the advisory whether this vendor solution works for us or not? So is that part of CERT? I mean, if I look at the mature IT and give us.
Sure. Are we under the mercy of vendors or vendors are under the mercy of us because we pay them money and without it?
I'm sorry, but the truth is today we are because everybody says, if you have this, you're okay.
Okay, very clear. Very clear question. Any more questions? Okay, we have a question over there in the back.
Hello, I'm Salim Al-Amri from Salalah College of Technology. I just want to ask about the collaboration between the CERT, or I could say the ITA, and the academic organization, universities or colleges. So, as we know, big number of users are university students, are using the technologies, smartphones, and they're spending most of their time surfing the net or any type of applications. So what would be the awareness, or there is any plan really for those users to, proper awareness or something like that?
Is this on a national level or we are discussing here the regional?
Or a national level as well as GCC country, yeah.
Okay, excellent. Any more question? Okay, then if we don't have more questions, the first questions from Fathia from video was on the regional center. And although Oman is hosting the regional center, and I could answer you with that, but I really would like to hand over this question also to my colleague, Dr. Sherif. I would like him, he's been actually for the past few years after forming a similar initiatives. And I definitely believe that the objectives behind it are not really different from the objectives of the regional center. Dr. Sherif, you want to address that?
Thank you very much for passing the question to me. Regional cooperation is critical for success of many of the efforts that we do, especially in cybersecurity. So we think that this center can be a focal point for sharing information, for networking, for launching regional projects, cooperation in analyzing malware, analyzing threats, incident handling, and getting to know at different levels what can be done to improve readiness of the society, not just of the technical people. And as such, we hope that this center would organize workshops that would bring together technology people as well as operational people responsible for making decisions in various sectors. And this would be done across the region, not just in Oman. It's a beautiful country to be in, but clearly it has to move around the region. I think we have agreement on this, but it would be also important in creating who's who. And I'll add to this important point that Yurie mentioned earlier. We need to know who to contact in case of a crisis. So this regional center could create this. We know that there are international efforts like the Meridian First, of course. They have activities, Impact has their database. So this center could be at the regional level. I would say a directory of knowledge and sharing experiences across the Arab region.
Thank you, Dr. Sherif. You have just nicely addressed this. I mean, the services are already being shared. It is definitely the capacity building workshops, extending the services to establish CERT with those Arab countries do not have, getting together. But another important thing which has been again nicely addressed by Dr. Sherif, I mean, having now a regional kind of focal point of contact or a regional collaboration here, it will enable us to talk as a region. I mean, there are multiple regional initiatives. The aeCERT is considered to be a regional initiatives. Europe CERT, I'm not really sure how much active is that, but at least it exists on the European Union. So this will enable us now to talk as a regional initiative instead of individual countries. I mean, we have seen lots of issues now in the cyber world, where if a specific country probably talk, the weight of this probably complaint or the weight of this request might not be equal if there are like all the regional countries or the regional member are going together with the same voice. The second question was on the vendors. Are we under the mercy of vendors? Are vendors under the mercy of us? Before I hand it over, is anybody from the vendors here would like to comment on it? I've got a number of vendors in the front here. Anybody want to share something? Maybe Casidians? And I too, definitely. I'll come back to it. But I wanted to hear also the vendors' point of view, since none of you are vendors.
Thank you. Yeah. Very honestly, I think we are all on the same side and we are all on the same boat. We have different views. On the user side, the objective is to have a secure system. On the vendor side, the objective is to provide these secure systems. I don't see anyone being under the mercy of anybody else. We are all working in the same direction. We all have one enemy, the attackers.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's look at an Omani vendor here over the table who's been keeping quiet, but a vendor that has been struggling. Yusuf, hello. Okay, I want to direct the question to you as well. Being an Omani vendor on cybersecurity, struggling for the past 7 years, we'd like to hear from him. Are we really under his mercy or he is under our mercy?
Could you explain again?
Okay, so basically the question from the gentleman in the back, he was asking, are we under the mercy of the vendors because they have all of the solutions, products, softwares, hardware, or is it the other way around?
Well, I think there's a chronic problem in our region, which is we think by buying technology we will solve an issue. And I think buying the technology is the last piece of the chain. You need, first of all, you need people who can help you to know what you want. So training and capacity building, building capacity, because to select what you want, you need to know what you want and what you are trying to protect from. And all of this, you will need human intelligence. You need people who can make that decision. And then to be followed by strategic intent and procedural processes and framework. And the technology becomes as the last piece. But the thing is, because there's so much incentives in the salespeople to push products, people are manipulated by the salespeople because we have to make quota. Every 4 months we have to sell so much. So the thing is, we are not going to advise you for your best interest. We will advise you to sell your products.
Thank you very much, Yusuf. I think end of the day, when we talk, are we under the mercy of vendors? We all work for vendors, whether it is a government that are serving the public or a private sector. So at the end of the day, it is kind of a win-win situation that has to be in place. Anyone from the panelists here would like to address this? Hamid, go ahead.
Vendor always, it's one of the main important parts of any technology. They support the government by providing all kinds of technology. However, does it mean that we should depend everything on the vendor side? Vendor provide technology, that means you need to have another layer of that, which is the people. The people who are going to use those technology. They should be trained well. They should apply the process of hardening those technologies. So with this, we will make the infrastructure or the operational level is more secure than for any threats. So, and one of the things that we have seen that people depend on the vendor more than anything. So whatever vendor implements as a solution, they don't go and look after what's been implemented. However, if the people or the operation people who are part of the implementation with all the levels, and one of the things is crucial before handovering the technology is hardening, is applying the security patches, all the things that are related to the security part. If those are in place, I think we will definitely reduce the cyber threats.
Thank you very much, Hatem. I think we are just exactly on a 0 second left for us. So I would like on your behalf to again extend the appreciation to our distinguished colleagues, Dr. Sherif, the advisor of the Minister of Communication, Dr. Ezedin, the Director of Information Security Agency in Libya, Ms. Yurie, the head of JB-CERT, Chairman of aeCERT, Barka, Coordinator of Cybersecurity at the International Telecommunication Union, Hamid, the Manager of Q-CERT, as well as Ahmed Ketbi from aeCERT. Thank you very much.
Thank you.